Well, hello there, my sleepy friends. Get yourself comfortable. Maybe grab something warm to drink. Pull a blanket over your lap. Let your eyes go soft, because tonight's story is one of the most human ones I've ever had the chance to tell. It doesn't involve spaceships or superpowers or alternate histories. It's smaller than that, and because of that, it hits harder than almost anything else. Tonight, we're talking about The Last of Us. Now, if you've been anywhere near gaming or television in the last decade or so, this franchise needs very little introduction. The Last of Us was made by Naughty Dog, the studio behind Crash Bandicoot and Uncharted, and it arrived in 2013 as something that genuinely changed how people thought about what a video game story could do. It won more awards than most games ever see. It made people cry in ways they weren't prepared for, and it did something very rare. It built two characters so carefully, so patiently, that the relationship between them became the whole point. The story of Joel and Ellie is, at its core, a story about love and loss, about what it means to be willing to burn the world down for one person, about how grief can hollow you out and fill you back up with something that might be beautiful or might be dangerous, and sometimes both at the same time. And then, 7 years after the first game, The Last of Us, Part 2 arrived and asked a question that nobody was entirely ready for. What happens next? What do the consequences of all that love and all those choices actually look like when they land? We're going to go through it all tonight. The world, the cordyceps, the first game, the Left Behind DLC, which tells a story that sits right at the heart of who Ellie is. And then Part 2, all of it, nice and slow, so settle in, this one matters. The world of The Last of Us is our world, or it was, until 2003. That was the year the cordyceps fungus mutated. If you know anything about cordyceps in real life, you already have a sense of why that's terrifying. Cordyceps is a real genus of fungus that infects insects, ants, most famously, by infiltrating their nervous systems, taking control of their behavior, and eventually killing them to spread more spores. It's one of the stranger and more unsettling things that actually exists in nature. The game takes this real phenomenon and asks, what if something like that happened to humans? The mutated cordyceps of The Last of Us spreads through bites and spores, and ultimately through the air in heavily infected areas. It attacks the human brain, spreading tendrils through the nervous system, taking over the host, first the behavior, then the body, and eventually all of what made that person who they were. The process of infection happens in stages. Early on, the infected, called runners, are still fast and aggressive and recognizable as human but going. Weeks in, the fungal growth starts overtaking the face and the senses, and they become clickers. Blind, guided by echolocation, terrifying in their particular way. Further along, bloaters, and eventually, given enough time, something can happen that is even worse. The outbreak hit civilization like a hammer. Within weeks of the fungus mutating, cities were falling. Governments called it a pandemic, then a crisis, then something without a name. The military tried quarantine zones, walled sections of major cities where survivors could live under martial law, under the protection and control of an organization called FEDRA, the Federal Disaster Response Agency. Outside the quarantine zones, the infected and the people who hadn't made it inside and the wilderness slowly reclaiming everything that used to be human. 20 years pass. By the time the game's story begins, in 2033, the world has settled into a terrible new normal. The quarantine zones are overcrowded, authoritarian, and fraying at the edges. Fedra controls them through surveillance and threat and rationing. There are rebel groups, the most significant being the Fireflies, a militia movement that believes Fedra is the real enemy, that human freedom matters more than the safety of martial law, and that a cure is still possible. The Fireflies follow a woman named Marlene, and one of the things Marlene is protecting is a secret she's been carrying for a long time. Before we get to Ellie, we need to understand Joel. Joel Miller is a man in his late 40s when the story begins, but we meet him 20 years earlier, on the night the outbreak started. He's living in Austin, Texas, with his 14-year-old daughter, Sarah. She has his eyes. She buys him a watch for his birthday. They fall asleep on the couch together, watching movies, the way families do, and then the night comes apart. The game's prologue, which is one of the most effective pieces of storytelling Naughty Dog has ever produced, moves fast and then very, very slow, in exactly the way real crisis moves. 1 minute, everything is fine, and the next, there are people in the street and car accidents and gunshots, and Joel is running with Sarah in his arms, and he doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't matter because he just needs to get her out. He doesn't get her out. Sarah dies in those opening minutes, shot by a soldier following orders to contain the outbreak, and the game holds on Joel's face as it happens for just long enough. That moment, Sarah's death, is the wound underneath everything in this story. The thing that changed Joel from whoever he was before into whoever he became. 20 years of the apocalypse, and he survived all of it. But he survived it by making himself hard, by deciding somewhere deep and quiet that loving someone that completely was the most dangerous thing a person could do. He became a smuggler, someone who moved things between quarantine zones, supplies, contraband, sometimes people, because the work was practical and it kept him busy and it didn't require him to feel much. He operates in the Boston quarantine zone with a woman named Tess, who is his partner in business and in most things. They're good at what they do. They're survivors in the most stripped down sense of the word. And then Marlene finds them. She has a job. She needs someone to smuggle a 14-year-old girl out of Boston and deliver her to a Firefly contact in the city's old state house. The girl is important. The reason she's important, Marlene doesn't fully explain yet, but she'll pay well. The girl's name is Ellie. Ellie Williams is 14 years old, and she has been in a Fedra-run military boarding school for most of her life. She's sharp and funny and reads the room fast, the way kids who've been without a stable home tend to read rooms, always assessing, always a half step ahead of whatever's coming next. She's also carrying something that almost nobody in the quarantine zone carries, a bite mark on her arm that's 3 weeks old. A 3-week-old bite mark should mean she's dead or turned. It doesn't. Ellie is immune. The cordyceps infects her, but doesn't take hold. Something about her biology, something about the way the fungus developed in her system, keeps the worst of it from happening. This is, as Marlene understands, potentially everything. If the Fireflies can get Ellie to their doctors, their scientists, they might be able to study her immunity and develop a cure, a real one, something that could change the whole calculus of this world, That's the mission. Get Ellie to the Fireflies lab in Salt Lake City. Joel, who doesn't particularly want to care about any of this, takes the job, and then Tess dies in the early hours of the mission, and Joel is left with a teenager he didn't ask for, a cross-country journey ahead of him, and the specific kind of numbness that comes from losing someone and knowing you can't afford to stop moving. What follows the bulk of The Last of Us, Part 1, is that journey. Joel and Ellie moving through the ruins of America, and through city after city, encounter after encounter, season changing into season, something happens that neither of them entirely planned for. They start to matter to each other. The journey in The Last of Us is structured almost like a road novel. Each location a different chapter, a different kind of threat, a different opportunity for Joel and Ellie to learn something about each other. They move through Boston's outskirts, through the ruins of Pittsburgh, through the quieter stretches of rural countryside. They encounter a thriving, if complicated, survivor commune run by a man named Bill, who has survived entirely on self-reliance and fury. They encounter hunters who will kill them for their supplies. They encounter the infected in every stage of transformation. Joel is a capable and ruthless protector. He's been surviving in this world for 20 years, and it shows in the way he moves, the way he makes decisions, the way violence comes easily to him in situations that would paralyze most people. He is not gentle, he is not warm, but he is effective in the specific way that keeps you alive. And Ellie, who has never been outside a quarantine zone, who is seeing the wreckage of the old world for the first time, is something else. She's curious and irreverent in the way young people are. When they're trying to process overwhelming things, she makes terrible puns. She finds a book of jokes and inflicts them on Joel. She's angry when she needs to be angry, and quietly desperate when she thinks no one is looking. Joel's younger brother Tommy is living in Wyoming, in a community built around a hydroelectric dam, a place with actual lights, actual running water, actual safety. Joel's plan is to hand Ellie off to Tommy, who used to be a firefly, who knows where the lab is and can take her the rest of the way. But then things go wrong, as things do. Ellie almost drowns. Joel almost dies, impaled by rebar in the chaos of an attack. And the game hands control to Ellie for a segment that is one of its most effective, because you feel the shift immediately. Joel has been your protection. Without him, the world is a completely different size. That shift in the game's pacing happens around the same time as the events of Left Behind, which we'll come back to in a moment, because that story belongs to Ellie alone, and it deserves its own space. Joel survives his wound, barely through the winter, and when spring comes and they're moving again, they're different with each other. The wall Joel kept up, the deliberate, practiced distance he maintained from anyone he might lose. It's lower now. Maybe it's gone. They reach the Fireflies Hospital in Salt Lake City. They see a giraffe on the way there, moving quietly through the greenery that's taken over the highway. It's one of the most beautiful moments in the game, and it comes right before everything falls apart, the way beauty often does. At the hospital, Marlene is waiting. She tells Joel what the Fireflies have found, that Ellie's immunity stems from a cordyceps growth around her brain, one that developed when she was born, that her body learned to coexist with. To extract the material, they need to synthesize a cure. They would need to remove it. The surgery would kill Ellie. She's already sedated. She's already on the table. Marlene says that Ellie would want this, that the chance to give her death meaning, to make her immunity into something that saves the world, was what Ellie would choose, if she could choose. Joel processes this, and then Joel puts on his gear and goes through the hospital. What Joel does in that hospital is one of the most debated things in modern gaming. He kills Firefly soldiers. He kills the surgeon. He carries Ellie out unconscious to a car in the parking garage. Marlene stops him. She tells him again, Ellie would want this. She is right, probably, about what Ellie would choose. Joel kills Marlene too, because Marlene might come after Ellie, because he can't take that chance. He drives. Ellie wakes up. She's disoriented, asking questions, and Joel lies to her. He tells her the Fireflies already found other immune people, that the doctors tried and couldn't make a cure work, that it was never going to be possible, that there was no point in going further. He tells her she's safe now, that they're going to his brother's place in Jackson, Wyoming, that it's over. At the edge of Jackson, Ellie stops walking. She asks him, quietly, seriously, with the weight of someone who already suspects, to swear to her that everything he said about the Fireflies is true. Joel looks at her. I swear. Ellie pauses. Okay. And the camera holds on her face for just a moment before it cuts. The game doesn't tell you whether she believes him. The expression it gives her leaves that question deliberately, uncomfortably open, and it's the right choice, because the entire rest of the series is the answer. Joel's choice in that hospital is the hinge on which everything turns. Was he right? Was he wrong? The game doesn't answer that. It gives you both the full weight of what a world without a cure means for everyone in it, and the full weight of what Ellie means to Joel, the way she became the thing he couldn't bear to lose again. And it leaves you sitting with both at once. That's the work the story is doing. It's not asking you to judge. It's asking you to understand. Now we need to step back, not in the story's timeline, not quite, but into a story that sits alongside the first game and illuminates everything it leaves in shadow. Left Behind is a DLC, a shorter, separate piece of storytelling set partly in the weeks before the main game begins, and partly in the winter section when Joel is badly injured and Ellie has to care for him alone. It runs about 2 hours, and in those 2 hours, it tells you everything essential about who Ellie is and how she got that way. The flashback part, which is the heart of it, begins with a knock on Ellie's window at the military school. It's the middle of the night, and the person knocking is Riley. Riley was Ellie's best friend. They grew up in the same boarding school, 2 kids without families, making something like family out of each other. And then, a few weeks before the story begins, Riley disappeared. She'd been recruited by the Fireflies and left without telling Ellie, and the absence of her had been a wound Ellie didn't know how to name. Now Riley is back. She has a surprise to show Ellie. She's found a way into an abandoned shopping mall in the quarantine zone. Locked up, off limits, technically dangerous, but intact, still full of everything it used to be. A photo booth, an arcade with working games, a Halloween costume store, a carousel that still turns. The old world, preserved under dust, still beautiful. And the 2 of them spend the night there. What makes Left Behind work, what makes it one of the most tender pieces of storytelling in the franchise, is that it's just 2 teenagers being teenagers. trying on Halloween masks and chasing each other through the store, playing a fighting game at the arcade, smashing buttons and arguing about who won, getting in a water gun fight in a sporting goods store, finding small joy in a world that has been relentlessly unkind just for a few hours, and in between the laughter, the harder things surface. Riley tells Ellie she's leaving. The Fireflies are sending her to Atlanta. She came back to say goodbye, to have one more night, to give Ellie the thing she's been missing. Ellie asks her to stay, tells her she'll find another way to leave. They can figure it out. They can go together. There has to be something. And in that argument, in the desperation of it, something shifts between them. Something that was always there, but hadn't been named yet. They kiss, and then the infected find them. The DLC doesn't show you the aftermath in the flashback. It pulls away at the moment both girls are bitten. The infected break through and overwhelm them, and both Ellie and Riley are bitten before they manage to fight their way clear. They lock themselves in a room together, and Riley says the thing that becomes, quietly, the thesis of everything Ellie does afterward. There are a million ways we should have died before today, and a million ways we could have died. But we fight for every second we get to spend with each other, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 years. They could give in. They could let the infection take them, or end it themselves before the turning. A lot of people do. They decide to stay, to keep going for as long as they can, to fight the darkness. What happens next, we don't see. The DLC ends there, but we know. Riley eventually turned, the way everyone bitten eventually turns. And Ellie, who didn't turn, who couldn't turn, was left alone in that room with the person she loved most in the world, and the thing that used to be her. By the time Ellie meets Joel, she has already survived the worst thing she can imagine happening. She already knows exactly what it costs to love someone and lose them, and she does it anyway. After the events of Part 1, Joel and Ellie settle into Jackson, Wyoming, Tommy's community. It's a real place, as these things go. Walls and electricity and people working together, people raising families, something approaching normal life. Joel has a house. Ellie has a room in it. 5 years pass. In those 5 years, things shift in ways that matter. Ellie grows up. She's 19 now, not 14. She has friends. She has a love interest, a young woman named Dina, whom she's clearly deeply fond of. She and Joel play guitar together. She writes in a journal. She has, in some real sense, a life. But the lie is still there. Ellie went back to the hospital eventually, found the evidence of what Joel actually did, what he took from her. She knows he didn't tell her the truth, and she hasn't been able to figure out how to carry that alongside everything else she feels about him. The love and the anger and the grief and the gratitude all tangled up together in the specific way families tangle things. The last real conversation between them, before everything, is on the porch of his house after a winter dance. She tells him, "I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have mattered, but you took that from me." And Joel, who has thought about this for 5 years, says, "I would do it all over again." And Ellie says, "I don't think I can ever forgive you for that, but I would like to try." That sentence, "I would like to try," is the most important sentence in the entire story because she never gets the chance. The Last of Us, Part 2 was released in 2020, and it is, without question, one of the most divisive games ever made. Not because it's poorly crafted, It is extraordinarily well crafted, technically and narratively, but because of what it asks you to do and what it takes from you while asking it. The story begins when a group of strangers passes through Jackson during a snowstorm. Joel and Ellie encounter them at a ski lodge on patrol. One of the strangers is a young woman named Abby. She's tall and strong and looks at Joel with a kind of focused attention that, in retrospect, means everything. Abby's father was a surgeon. He was the Firefly doctor who was going to perform the surgery on Ellie in Salt Lake City. He died in that hospital when Joel came through. Abby has spent 5 years training, 5 years getting strong enough, finding out where Joel was, waiting for the right moment. She lured him to the lodge, and in front of Ellie, who is held down, who is screaming, who can't stop it, Abby kills Joel. The game doesn't look away. Joel's death in part 2 lands with the full weight of everything the first game built. He is not a background character dying off screen. He is beaten to death slowly in front of someone who loved him, and the camera stays. It is one of the most painful sequences in modern storytelling. And then the game does something almost no other game has ever tried. It makes you play as Abby. Not immediately. The game alternates. You follow Ellie as she travels to Seattle to find Abby and the rest of the group who killed Joel, consumed by grief and rage and the need to make it mean something. And you follow Abby across the same Seattle 3 days earlier as she deals with the aftermath of what she's done and the complicated reality of a person who got her revenge and found that it didn't feel like she thought it would. What Part 2 does over its long and brutal runtime is build Abby into a full person. You see her world, her friendships, her loyalties, a young boy named Lev she becomes responsible for, someone who needs her the way Ellie needed Joel, a mirror, deliberate and carefully built. The game is asking you to do something very hard, to feel for both of these women at once, to understand that the story doesn't have a side to be on, that Abby had reasons, that Ellie has reasons, that grief and love and vengeance don't organize themselves into heroes and villains. They just move through people and leave damage wherever they go. Ellie loses almost everything in Seattle trying to get to Abby. Her friend Jessie is killed. Tommy is gravely injured. She nearly dies herself. And Abby, finding Ellie at the brink in a theater with a chance to end it, doesn't. She walks away. It still isn't over. 18 months later, Ellie is living on a farm outside Jackson with Dina and Dina's baby, a boy named JJ, named partly for Joel. They have chickens and a garden and a porch and something that looks, from the outside, like a life. But Ellie is not okay. She has nightmares. She plays guitar, the guitar Joel gave her, and keeps stopping partway through songs. The PTSD is woven into every quiet moment. She loves Dina and JJ. She does. But the thing she didn't finish is still there. A splinter she can't get to. And then Tommy comes. Tommy, who lost his eye in Seattle, who has been burning ever since, who tracked Abby to Santa Barbara, California, where word has it the fireflies are reforming, where Abby might be. Ellie goes. She tells Dina she'll come back. She knows what she's choosing, and she goes anyway. What she finds in Santa Barbara is not what she expected. Abby and Lev have been captured, not by enemies you've heard of, but by a faction called the Rattlers, slavers who have been holding people in brutal conditions on the beach. Abby and Lev are starving, barely alive, tied to poles in the sun, and Ellie frees them. She doesn't know in that moment what she's going to do next. But she frees them because whatever else Abby is, what Ellie sees tied to that pole is not a monster. It's a person who has been surviving, the way everyone in this world is just surviving. But then, the need takes over again. She can't let them go, not yet. She calls Abby back to fight one more time. The fight is in the water. It's ugly and exhausted, and neither of them really wants it anymore. Abby bites off 2 of Ellie's fingers. Ellie gets Abby under the water, holds her there, and then a memory surfaces. Joel. His face, the way he looked in that last real conversation on his porch. I would like to try. She lets Abby go. She watches Abby and Lev paddle out into the ocean, getting smaller until they're gone. And Ellie goes home, but home isn't what it was. Dina and JJ have left, back to Jackson presumably, and the farmhouse is empty. Everything they built is still there, just without anyone in it. Ellie sits at the kitchen table. She picks up Joel's guitar, tries to play, can't. The missing fingers make the chords impossible. She sets it down gently and walks outside into the quiet. The last image we're left with is a flashback. That last conversation between Joel and Ellie on his porch. Her telling him she wants to try to forgive him. Both of them standing in the last light of the evening. She never got to finish that sentence. She never got to finish trying, but she let Abby live. She chose mercy when everything in her wanted something else, and whether that's enough, whether she can build something from that, whether there's still a life waiting for her, the game leaves open, the way the first game left its ending open. That's the answer the story gives to everything Joel set in motion. It doesn't close. It just reaches a place where healing becomes possible if she wants it. The Last of Us is, on the surface, about the end of the world, the cordyceps, the infected, the collapsed civilization, and the factions fighting over what's left. But it's really about something much simpler and much harder. What love does to people. Joel loved Sarah, and losing her broke him open in a way he spent 20 years armoring over. When he found Ellie, when he couldn't stop himself from loving her too, even though he knew what it would cost him, his choice at the hospital was the most honest thing he ever did. He was not a good man by the end of that game, but he was a human one. He chose his daughter over the world, and the tragedy of it is that the world was also real, and the cost was also real, and he knew both of those things. Ellie loved Riley and survived her, loved Joel and couldn't forgive him, and then lost him before she could try. The thing part 2 is built around is that unfinished sentence, I would like to try, and what it means to have that possibility taken from you. What the ending of part 2 suggests is that you can break a cycle, that Ellie, standing in the water with Abby's life in her hands, made a choice that was against her rage and her grief and the logic of everything that brought her there. And she made it anyway, because somewhere under all of it, she is still the person who decided in a locked room with Riley that they would fight the darkness, that they would keep going. That thread runs from the very first thing we know about Ellie all the way to the very last. And Joel, complicated, broken, completely human Joel, is woven through all of it, even at the end, even when he's gone. The franchise is very much alive. The Last of Us, Part 1 received a full remake in 2022, rebuilt from the ground up for PlayStation 5, with updated visuals and some expanded character detail, while keeping the story entirely intact. The HBO television adaptation, starring Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie, premiered in January 2023 and was an enormous critical and popular success. Season 1 covered the events of the first game. Season 2 began in 2025 and is adapting Part 2 across multiple seasons, and a third game, The Last of Us Part 3, while not officially announced as of now, has been discussed by the developers in enough specific terms that most people consider it a matter of when, not if. Ellie's story feels unfinished in the best way. There's clearly still somewhere to go. Neil Druckmann, the creative lead at Naughty Dog, who wrote and directed both games, has said that the story of The Last of Us is the thing he feels most personally about. You can tell. Both games carry the weight of something made by people who meant it. And that is the story of The Last of Us. From a father running through the dark with his daughter in his arms, to two teenagers in a mall finding out they love each other an hour before the world takes it away, to a cross-country road trip that started as a job and turned into the most important relationship either of them would ever have, to a choice in a hospital, to a lie, to a woman in the water with everything she's lost behind her and a question she can't quite answer yet in front of her. It is a story that doesn't let you off the hook. It asks you to love people who make terrible decisions. It asks you to understand grief well enough to forgive it. It asks you to hold two impossible things at the same time: the world that could have been saved and the person who was saved instead, and not look away from either one. That's what the best stories do, and The Last of Us is one of the best. If you've never played it, both games are there, waiting for you, and the show is there too. They're different experiences, but they're carrying the same heart. And if you know this story already, if Joel and Ellie have been living in you since 2013, I hope tonight felt like time well spent with something you love. Rest now. You've earned it. Good night. Well, hello there, my sleepy friends. Get comfortable. Pull a blanket over yourself. Find a comfortable spot. Let everything from today just drift back a little, because tonight's story is a good one. Not dark and heavy and existential. Just a really good, warm, exciting story about a man with a knack for getting into trouble and a grin he absolutely shouldn't be wearing given the situation. Tonight, we're talking about Uncharted. The Uncharted series is one of the PlayStation's crown jewels, developed by Naughty Dog, the same studio that would later give us The Last of Us, and debuting on the PS3 in 2007. It was, from the very beginning, designed to feel like a movie, like an adventure movie specifically, the kind with temples and ancient mysteries and car chases and witty one-liners delivered mid-freefall. Indiana Jones, The Mummy, National Treasure, that energy, that particular flavor of excitement where the stakes are enormous, but the tone never quite stops being fun. At the center of it all is Nathan Drake, Nate, a man who would describe himself as a treasure hunter, and who his friends would describe as someone who should statistically be dead several times over, but somehow keeps landing on his feet. He's charming and funny and surprisingly principled, and he has this way of treating history, the old, buried, forgotten corners of it, with genuine reverence, even as he's sliding under a closing door, with half the ceiling coming down behind him. Alongside him, over the course of 4 games, are the people who make the series worth caring about, even when the ancient artifacts are wild and the villains are forgettable. Victor Sullivan, Sully, his mentor, his father figure, the man who found him when he had nothing. Elena Fisher, journalist and the truest constant of Nate's life. And later, Sam, his brother, a ghost from his past, and the key to understanding who Nathan Drake really is underneath all the quipping and climbing. Tonight, we're going through all 4 main games. Nice and easy. The treasure hunts, the ruins, the quiet moments around the fire, and the ending that puts everything to rest in the most satisfying way this franchise could have managed. So get comfortable. Adventure awaits. Before we get into the first game, it helps to understand who Nate is and where he came from, because the series fills this in gradually, in pieces, and it becomes more important as the games go on. Nathan Drake is not his real name. That's one of the first things Uncharted 3 eventually reveals, and we'll get to the full weight of it when we reach that game. But the name he uses, Drake, is a choice, a deliberate one. Nathan grew up believing himself to be a descendant of Sir Francis Drake, the famous Elizabethan explorer, privateer, and one of the great adventurers of the 16th century. That belief, whether entirely accurate or not, shaped everything. It gave a kid with no family and no particular prospects a sense of lineage, a story to belong to. He ended up in a juvenile detention facility at some point in his youth. Details are sparse, and the games don't dwell on it. And that's where a young Nate, maybe 15 or 16, first encountered Victor Sullivan. Sully is older, weathered, fond of cigars, and a good con, and has been around the world enough times to recognize something in the teenager sitting across from him. He took Nate under his wing, taught him the craft, not just how to find treasure, but how to read history, how to move through the world, how to survive the particular chaos that comes with digging up things people have been trying to keep buried. Their relationship is the emotional backbone of the franchise. Sully is not Nate's father, technically, but he is, in every way that counts. By the time the first game begins, Nate is in his early 30s. He has a reputation, modest, in the treasure hunting world, and he has the journal, Francis Drake's journal, a 400-year-old diary that he carries with him like a lucky charm, like a birthright, like the one thing that makes the name feel earned. And he has a lead, a very, very interesting lead. Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, the first game, released in 2007, begins on the water. Nate and Elena Fisher, a documentary filmmaker who has hired on to document Nate's work, much to his initial chagrin, are out in the open ocean, searching for something specific, the coffin of Sir Francis Drake, recovered from coordinates hidden in the journal. Drake, historically, died at sea in 1596. His body was buried at sea in a lead coffin off the coast of Panama. They find it, and it's empty, not robbed, empty by design, because Drake faked his death. And inside the coffin, sealed and preserved, is a clue, a navigational device that points the way to a place Drake spent the last years of his life trying to find, El Dorado, the legendary city of gold. Nate is immediately electric with it. This is the thing. This is what the journal has been pointing toward. This is the discovery that justifies the name. And Elena, who is expecting a rather more conventional documentary, finds herself caught up in it too, because Elena Fisher is many things, but incurious is not one of them. Then Sully arrives, and then pirates arrive, and the tone of the adventure snaps into focus. This is going to be that kind of story. Sully has been working with a man named Gabriel Roman, a crime lord with deep pockets and a long-standing interest in ancient treasures. Roman wants El Dorado. He's hired the Eddie Raja pirate crew to help find it. And when things go sideways in the first act, as things always do, Nate, Sully, and Elena end up on a jungle island in the middle of the Pacific, with pirates on one side and the ruins of a lost Spanish colonial settlement on the other. The island is extraordinary and deeply wrong in ways that become clear gradually. The Spanish colony, built centuries ago by settlers who followed Drake's trail, is ruined. Not just abandoned, ruined in a way that speaks to something catastrophic. The colonists who came here didn't leave, they stayed. And something happened to them. The something is connected to El Dorado itself, which turns out not to be a city of gold, but a massive golden sarcophagus, an artifact containing an ancient curse that affects anyone exposed to it. The Spanish colonists, the ones who found it, were transformed into something feral and wrong, somewhere between alive and dead. They're still on the island. They've been there for 400 years. It is, needless to say, not what the brochure promised. Roman and his mercenaries, led by a man named Navarro, get to the statue first. And here the story takes a turn that the franchise will repeat in varying forms across all 4 games. The ancient thing at the center of the mystery is more dangerous than anyone bargained for, and the villain's plan to exploit it has consequences nobody's ready for. Navarro intends to weaponize El Dorado. The curse, properly deployed, could be worth more than any amount of gold. Roman, who touches the sarcophagus and is immediately horribly affected by it, is simply collateral damage at that point, a means that has served its end. Nate stops it in a fight atop a helicopter over the open ocean, which is exactly as chaotic as it sounds. He destroys the sarcophagus. El Dorado sinks. The curse goes with it. And in the aftermath, in the quiet that follows the kind of adventure that should by rights have killed everyone involved, something shifts between Nate and Elena. They've been bickering and one-upping each other for the entire game, the way people do when they're enjoying someone's company more than they want to admit. And when the dust settles, the enjoyment is harder to deny. Sully watches from a comfortable distance and says nothing, because Sully has seen this coming since approximately the first 20 minutes. The first Uncharted is the most straightforwardly fun of the 4 games. It's lighter than what comes after, more pulpy, more purely adventurous, less interested in the characters' interior lives. But it establishes everything: the world, the tone, the relationship between Nate and Sully, the specific way this series treats history as both genuinely fascinating and occasionally terrifying. And it introduces Elena, who becomes the quiet moral center of the franchise, whether or not the story is directly about her. One of the things the Uncharted series does that's worth acknowledging is that it treats the relationship between Nate and Elena seriously enough to let it be complicated. By the start of the second game, they've broken up. By the start of the third, they've broken up again, after apparently having gotten back together at some point in between. The games don't always show you what happened in the gaps. They trust you to understand that relationships between People with complicated lives don't follow a clean arc, that they require work and honesty and the willingness to actually be present for someone, and that Nate, for all his considerable charm, has trouble with that last part. The treasure hunting isn't just a job for Nate, it's a compulsion, a way of being in the world that doesn't leave a lot of room for stability. Elena understands adventure. She's not asking him to stop, she's asking him to let her in, and Nate keeps finding ways to not quite do that. This thread runs all the way through the series and lands in the fourth game in a way that earns everything it's asking for. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves arrived in 2009, and it is widely considered not just the best game in the franchise, but one of the best games of its generation. It's bigger, more confident, more emotionally layered than the first, and it opens with one of the most memorable cold openings in gaming history. Nate wakes up in a train car. He's injured. The car is hanging off the edge of a cliff, ice and snow outside, the train dangling in the dark. And you, as the player, have to figure out how to climb out of that situation before the whole thing falls, with no idea yet how you got there. The game then cuts back to explain. Sometime after the events of the first game, Nate is approached by two old acquaintances, Harry Flynn, smooth and untrustworthy in ways Nate half registers and mostly ignores, and Chloe Fraser, a fellow treasure hunter who also happens to be Nate's ex-girlfriend. They have a job, a museum heist in Istanbul, steal a Mongolian oil lamp that contains a clue to the lost fleet of Marco Polo. The history here is extraordinary. Marco Polo, on his return voyage from China in 1292, set out with 14 ships and 600 passengers. He arrived in Persia with 1 ship and 18 survivors. What happened to the rest, where 13 ships and nearly 600 people went, has never been explained. The Uncharted 2 answer is that the fleet was destroyed by a tsunami while transporting something remarkable from the mythical city of Shambhala, the Sintamani stone. Nate and Harry pull off the heist, and then Harry betrays him, tips off the authorities, takes the lamp and its secrets, leaves Nate to take the fall. 3 months in a Panamanian prison later, Sully gets him out, and Nate learns that Harry is working for Zoran Lazarevic, a Serbian war criminal, a brutal and inefficient man with enough resources and ruthlessness to do what any army couldn't: follow the trail of Marco Polo's fleet to Shambhala itself. Lazarevic wants the Sintamani stone. He believes it will make him invincible. And given the kind of man he already is without any supernatural assistance, that's a genuinely terrifying prospect. The chase takes Nate, and eventually Chloe, and Sully, and Elena, who reappears as a journalist covering conflict in the region and gets pulled into the adventure with the resigned exasperation of someone who has been here before. From Istanbul to Borneo to Nepal to the Himalayas, each location is more stunning than the last. Each step of Marco Polo's trail more extraordinary. Nepal is where the game spends its longest act, and it's where the emotional landscape gets richest. Nate is navigating the complicated space between Chloe, who is pragmatic about danger to the point of being willing to sacrifice necessary things, and Elena, who keeps showing up and being right about things and being someone Nate trusts with his life even when they're not together. The trail leads eventually to a mountain monastery in the Himalayas, and then through a passage unlocked by a ceremonial dagger called the Furba to Shambhala itself. Shambhala is real, hidden, ancient, and it is being guarded. The guardians of Shambhala are not quite what you'd expect from a lost civilization's protectors. They're enormous. They look like creatures out of folklore, and they are relentless. What the game reveals is that they are human, or were, enhanced by the Tree of Life, the real source of Shambhala's power. Because the Sintamani stone is not a gemstone worth millions. It's something stranger, a massive piece of amber resin from an ancient tree. And the tree's blue sap, when ingested, grants the drinker something close to invincibility. Lazarevich gets to the tree. He bathes in the sap, and he becomes exactly what he promised himself he'd become. Overwhelming, almost unstoppable, almost. The thing about the Guardian-enhanced Shambhala defenders is that they respond to the Furba. Nate uses that. He turns the Guardians on Lazarevich instead. Doesn't kill him himself, just steps back and lets the consequences of what Lazarevich chose to take find him. It's one of Nate's quieter moments of moral clarity in the series. He could finish it with his own hands. He doesn't. Elena is badly wounded in the final battle. A grenade the Harry Flynn detonates in a last, bitter act of spite takes Flynn with it and catches Elena in the blast. She survives. She and Nate sit together in the ruins of Shambhala as it collapses around them, and something between them settles back into place without either of them having to say exactly what it is. Uncharted 2 is the high watermark of the franchise. In terms of pure adventure storytelling, it's endlessly inventive. A moving train, a burning building, a tank chase through a Nepali village, a lost city in the mountains. But what makes it land is that it earns its emotional moments. The relationship between Nate and Elena feels real. The dynamic between Nate and Chloe feels real and complicated, and ultimately right that it resolves the way it does. And Sully, as always, is exactly where he needs to be. Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, came out in 2011, and it is the most personal of the 4 games, the one most explicitly about Nate himself, rather than the treasure he's chasing. The title is a clue, if you know where to look. The game opens with a flashback. Young Nate, maybe 15, in a London pub, trying to steal something from a sophisticated, older woman named Catherine Marlowe. He fails, she catches him, and rather than turning him over to the police, she does something more interesting. She talks to him. She's sharp and cold and strangely fascinated by this teenager who is trying to pickpocket her, and the conversation between them reveals that she knows things about Nate, about who he is and where he came from, that he doesn't know himself. The ring, Francis Drake's ring, which Nate wears and has always worn, the symbol of the lineage he claims. Marlowe's organization has been looking for it for years, and the ring, combined with a cipher disk she also wants, unlocks the mystery of Iram of the Pillars, a lost city in the Arabian desert, also known as Ubar, the Atlantis of the Sands. Marlowe leads a secret society, centuries old, shadowy, operating in the corridors of power across Europe, that has been searching for Iram since the days of Queen Elizabeth I. Francis Drake himself was sent to find it on Elizabeth's orders. He found it, and then he covered it up, destroyed the evidence, and went to his grave without telling anyone what he'd discovered. What he'd discovered was the reason why it had to stay hidden. In the present day, Nate, now older, working with Sully, Chloe, and a new addition, a British roughneck named Charlie Cutter. They run an elaborate sting to locate Marlowe's organization and stay ahead of her. It goes well, then sideways, in the way these things always do. The game moves through London, then Syria, then Yemen, each leg of the journey following Francis Drake's original trail across the 16th century, each location unlocking another piece of what the real mission was and why Drake ultimately turned back. Elena is in Yemen, working. She and Nate are separated again, still married. Technically, she's still wearing the ring, but the distance between them is palpable. They argue. In that specific way, people argue when one of them is avoiding something the other one can see clearly. Nate is obsessed. He always is, at the cost of everything else that matters. Marlowe captures Sully, and this is where the game shifts into a different gear, because Sully is not just an asset or an ally. He is the person Nathan Drake would walk through anything to protect, the one relationship in his life that has been constant and unconditional since he was a teenager in a London pub with no one to fall back on. Nate goes after him, across the Sahara, on foot, through the kind of heat that makes everything else fall away. It's one of the franchise's most visually striking sequences. Nate staggering through endless dunes, half hallucinating, alone. And it's effective precisely because it strips away all the wit and momentum and leaves just the man and his determination to reach the person he loves. He reaches Yemen. He reaches the underground excavation site where Marlowe's people have been digging, and he discovers the truth that Francis Drake discovered 4 centuries before him. Iram of the Pillars is real. It's buried beneath the desert, and beneath it is a massive underground cistern, and in that cistern, a brass vessel, sealed by King Solomon, containing something that contaminated the city's water supply. Not demons, exactly, though legend called them that. A hallucinogenic substance so powerful that anyone who drank the water saw visions, went mad, became uncontrollable. A weapon, essentially. The most dangerous kind, invisible, odorless, untraceable, carried in the water of a great civilization that fell because of what was put in its water. Marlowe intends to use it, to deploy it. The final confrontation sends the city into collapse. Iram is built on pillars over that underground cistern, and when the pillars go, the whole thing sinks. Marlowe is swallowed by quicksand in the chaos. Talbot, her lieutenant, is dealt with by Nate in a desperate fight, and the weapon sinks with the city, sealed again. But the thing that stays with you from Uncharted 3 is not the city or the artifact. It's the revelation Marlowe makes in that cafe in Yemen. While Nate is drugged and vulnerable, and she has him exactly where she wants him, she tells him the truth, that his name is not really Drake, that he is not a descendant of Sir Francis Drake, that Nathan Drake is a persona he chose, constructed as a teenager with nothing out of the need to be someone, to belong to something. It's a small bomb disguised as a taunt. And Nate, even in his hallucinogen-addled state, receives it the way it's intended, as an attempt to hollow him out, to make him feel like the name and the ring and the story he's been living are fraudulent. But here's what the game understands, and what Nate eventually does too. The name being chosen doesn't make it false. He became Nathan Drake. He made himself into the person that name describes. And Sully, who knew? who always knew, chose to take him in anyway. The lineage was real in the ways that mattered. They go home. Nate and Elena, somewhere in the aftermath, are clearly trying again. 3 years pass between the events of Drake's deception and A Thief's End, and in those 3 years, something genuinely remarkable happens. Nate actually retires. He and Elena are living together in New Orleans. He's working for a salvage company, legitimate, unglamorous, spending his days assessing the value of boring shipping containers rather than descending into ancient tombs. He wears a tie sometimes. He goes to bed at a reasonable hour. He is, by most measures, living a life that should make him happy. Elena has a career she's building. They have a home. They have each other. But there's a restlessness in him that doesn't go away. The quiet is too quiet. The work is too small. He misses the thing he loved even as he knew, intellectually, that the thing he loved had almost gotten him killed more times than he could count. Nate is trying. He's genuinely trying. And then his brother shows up. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, was released in 2016 on the PlayStation 4, and it is a masterwork of adventure storytelling. It was Amy Hennig's departure from the project, and Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley's arrival as directors that shaped its final form. And what they made is a game that is simultaneously the most spectacular and the most intimate entry in the franchise. A fitting farewell. The game opens with Nate and a young man we don't know yet, out in the Indian Ocean, being chased through a storm in a damaged boat. Then it flashes back. 2 timelines, Nate's childhood and the present, begin to fill in the picture. The childhood flashbacks give us Samuel Drake, Nate's older brother, the brother who wasn't mentioned in any of the previous 3 games, which the 4th acknowledges with characteristic self-awareness. Sam is charming and reckless, and he taught Nate to climb and pick locks and think of the world as a puzzle worth solving. They were in an orphanage together. They ran together. They dreamed together of Francis Drake, of the treasures, of the life that was waiting out there somewhere. And then, 15 years before the main story, they're in a prison in Panama with a 3rd person, Rafe Adler, a wealthy and intensely competitive treasure hunter who funded their access to the prison because it contains a crucial clue to the whereabouts of the legendary pirate Henry Avery's treasure. Avery was one of the most successful pirates of the Golden Age. He captured the Ganjai Sawai, one of the richest ships in the world, and then vanished with his treasure. Nobody ever found him. Nobody ever found what he took. The prison escape goes wrong. Guards catch them. In the chaos, Sam is shot and falls. Nate, barely escaping with his life, believes his brother is dead. He carries that for 15 years. And then Sam shows up at his door in New Orleans. Sam didn't die. He survived, was recaptured, spent 15 years in that Panamanian prison, and got out with the help of a drug lord named Hector Alcazar, who expects a return on his investment, Avery's treasure, or Sam's life. Nate believes him. Of course he does. This is his brother, the person who taught him everything, the person he thought was gone. And so Nate does what Nate does. He lies to Elena, tells her he's taking a salvage job, and disappears back into the life he'd been trying to leave. Sully, recruited to help, is not thrilled. He trusts Nate's judgment in almost everything. He does not entirely trust Sam, but he shows up because he always shows up. The trail of Henry Avery takes them from an auction house in Italy, where they first run into Rafe Adler, now the villain of the piece, obsessive and entitled, and somewhere underneath all of it, deeply insecure in the way people are when they've never had to earn what they have, to a cathedral in the Scottish Highlands, then to Madagascar, and finally to a hidden island in the Indian Ocean where Avery built something extraordinary. Avery wasn't just hiding his treasure, he was building a utopia, Libertalia, a legendary pirate colony, a society founded on the idea that the sea was free and the men who sailed it answered to no one. 12 pirate captains, Avery among them, pooled their plunder and built something that was supposed to last. A city, a civilization. It didn't last. The colony's remains, on the island Nate and Sam eventually reach, tell the story without anyone needing to say it. Libertalia fell apart from within. The captains who had pooled their treasure with promises of brotherhood ended up fighting over it, killing each other. Avery and his closest companion and co-founder, Thomas too, wound up in the same room, and only the booby traps they'd built to protect the hoard were left to tell the tale. Neither of them walked out. Their bodies are still there in Avery's treasure vault, surrounded by everything they killed each other over. It's the franchise's most explicit statement of its own themes. The treasure is never the point. The treasure is always a trap. The thing worth having is the people you're with on the way to it, which is, of course, when Elena shows up in Madagascar. She's figured it out, followed the threads, as Elena always does, because Elena is extraordinary at her job, and she is not coming to fight. She's coming because she loves him, and she is furious at him, and those two things are not in conflict. The scene between them in a hotel room in Madagascar is one of the best written exchanges in the franchise. Not a blow-up, not a resolution, just two people who care about each other, trying to understand what's happening and whether they're going to be okay. Elena joins them because of course she does. The endgame on Avery's island puts everything in motion at once. Rafe, obsessive and increasingly unhinged, refusing to leave without the treasure. Nadine Ross, Rafe's mercenary contractor, who is practical enough to recognize a lost cause and wants out. Sam, who has been lying. There is no Alcazar, no debt. The drug lord died months ago, and who came back because he missed his brother, and because he wasn't ready to let Nate have the quiet life without at least one more adventure. Rafe's obsession mirrors Avery's. That's the point. A man who already has everything, unable to stop reaching for the one thing he can't buy. Not the treasure, but the feeling of having deserved something, of having earned it. He didn't earn it, and the same traps that killed Avery and two nearly kill him. Nate saves Sam, beats Rafe, gets off the burning ship, and in the aftermath, on a quiet beach with the treasure going up in fire behind them, Nate and Elena and Sam and Sully are just people, alive, together, on the wrong side of another impossible situation, and somehow fine. The epilogue is the best thing in the franchise. Years later, Nate and Elena with a daughter, Cassie, a teenager who has her father's curiosity and her mother's instincts. She's exploring their house, finding the artifacts and journals and maps tucked into corners. She finds her father's old things, and then her parents come in, and you understand, from the way they talk, the way they move, the way they are together, that this is what it looks like when it works. When the restlessness gets channeled into something that includes another person rather than running away from them. They're archaeologists now, legal ones. They still find things, they still go places, but they go together. Sam is out there somewhere, adventuring. Sully is out there somewhere, probably in a hammock. And Nate and Elena are standing in the evening light of their home, watching their daughter discover the story of everything her parents survived before she was born. It's a perfect ending. Uncharted is about treasure hunting the way The Last of Us is about zombies, which is to say, the genre trappings are real and they're fun, but they're not the thing the story is actually interested in. What Uncharted is really about is the difference between running towards something and running away from something, and how hard it can be to tell which one you're doing. Nate spends 3.5 games using adventure as a way of not fully committing to his life. Not because he's irresponsible. He's deeply loyal, deeply caring, someone who will walk into a burning building for the people he loves without a second thought. But the intimacy of staying, of being someone's person, day in and day out, in the unglamorous in-between, that's harder for him. The treasure hunt is where he knows who he is. The quiet is where he has to figure that out. Elena is the person who holds space for him to figure it out. She doesn't wait passively. She keeps building her own life, keeps showing up on her own terms. But she loves him specifically enough to see that the restlessness isn't a flaw. It's a feature. It just needs to be pointed in the right direction. And Sully is the person who knows all of this and says very little about it, because Sully has the wisdom to let people become who they're going to become, and the patience to still be there when they do. The fourth game resolves the story by giving Nate the thing he couldn't quite find before, a life that contains all of it, the adventure and the stability, the discovery and the home, Elena and the ruins and the maps, and their daughter who is absolutely, already, going to be better at all of this than either of them. The mainline Nathan Drake story ended with a thief's end, and that ending is complete enough that it doesn't feel like it needs more. Uncharted, The Lost Legacy, released in 2017, is a standalone spin-off following Chloe Fraser and Nadine Ross on a treasure hunt through India, searching for the tusk of Ganesh. It's a tighter, shorter adventure that functions beautifully on its own terms, and the dynamic between Chloe and Nadine, two very different women who come to understand each other across one chaotic, beautiful, dangerous day, is one of the franchise's most underrated character pairings. A film adaptation arrived in 2022, starring Tom Holland as a younger Nate and Mark Wahlberg as Sully, a kind of prequel to the games. It did solid business worldwide and introduced the characters to a new audience, though it operates in its own continuity rather than being a direct adaptation of any specific game. Whether the games continue with new characters or eventually return to Nate's world in some form hasn't been announced. Naughty Dog has been deep in other work, and for now, the Uncharted franchise rests comfortably where A Thief's End left it, which is, honestly, the right place. Some stories earn their ending. This one did. And that is the story of Uncharted. From a boy in a juvenile detention facility who decided to give himself a name worth living up to a man hanging off the side of a train with a quip already forming, to a father standing in the evening light, watching his daughter discover the world the same way he once did. It's a franchise about finding things, ancient things, lost things, things that history buried and forgot. But the best discoveries in it are always the human ones. Sully believing in a teenager nobody else saw anything in. Elena loving a man who kept almost leaving and not quite letting herself stop caring. Nate finally understanding that the life in front of him was worth more than any treasure behind the next door. The adventure was always the frame. The people were always the picture. If you haven't played Uncharted, or if you played it years ago and haven't thought about it in a while, it holds up beautifully, warm and funny, and full of the particular joy of watching someone do something dangerous with a grin that says they wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you for spending tonight here. Rest well. Good night. Well, hello there, my sleepy friends. Come on in, sit down, get comfortable. Tonight, we're going somewhere a little different. We're not going to space exactly. We're going to a world that feels old, a world covered in the ruins of something ancient and barely understood, a world held together by energy and mystery and the kind of friendship that doesn't ask for anything in return. We're going to talk about Jak and Daxter. This is a series that tends to live in a particular corner of people's hearts. Not always the loudest corner, not always the one they bring up first, but a deep one, a permanent one, the kind that gets unlocked when a certain song comes on, or when you catch a glimpse of a PlayStation 2 at a flea market, and suddenly you're 15 again, and the whole afternoon smells like plastic and possibility. Naughty Dog, the studio behind this trilogy, went on to make Uncharted and then The Last of Us, both of which changed the way people thought about storytelling in video games. But before all of that, there was a boy, a monster weasel on his shoulder, and a world full of secrets older than anyone alive could explain. This is where it started. Before we begin, I want to spend a few minutes with the world itself, because the lore of Jak and Daxter is unusual in that the setting is almost a character, and understanding it makes everything that follows land a little harder. The world of Jak and Daxter is unnamed. It's a planet somewhere, in some distant time that's never quite pinned down. What we know is that it was shaped, perhaps even created, by a civilization called the Precursors. They're gone now, or at least they seem to be. What they left behind are vast stone monuments, crumbling temples overgrown with jungle, ancient pipelines, and machines that still hum with power after centuries of neglect, and a substance, a resource called eco. Eco is the life energy of the world. It flows through everything. It comes in several forms, each with different properties. Blue eco gives you speed, empowers machines. Green eco heals you. Red eco amplifies your strength. Yellow eco lets you channel it into bursts of energy, like a thrown bolt of lightning. These aren't just gameplay elements. In the fiction of the world, eco is genuinely the lifeblood of everything. Civilization runs on it. Sages dedicate their entire lives to studying and channeling a single type of it. And then there is dark eco, the corrupted form, the poison. Dark eco warps and destroys whatever it touches. Living things, machines, the landscape itself. It is pure, unstable, dangerous energy, and it has been sealed away underground in vast silos, locked beneath the earth to keep it from spreading. There are those who study it, of course. There always are. The precursors who built this world and left behind all these ruins are spoken of with something approaching reverence. ancient beyond reckoning, impossibly wise, the creators of everything. Who were they really? What happened to them? Why did they leave? These are questions the world asks quietly, persistently, and the series eventually answers them in a way that no one was expecting. But that's for later. For now, eco flows through the earth, and the ruins are everywhere. And somewhere among it all is a seaside village called Sandover. That's where our story starts. The village of Sandover is exactly what it sounds like. Small, quiet, warm, situated between the ocean and a wide expanse of open country. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. An adventure mostly means something went wrong with the fishing. Living here are two teenage boys who have been friends their entire lives. Their names are Jak and Daxter. Let's talk about them for a moment, because they are the heart of everything that follows, and the first game takes its time letting you fall in love with them before it asks anything hard of you. Jak is quiet, pointedly, almost stubbornly quiet. In the precursor legacy, he doesn't speak a single word. He has long, spiky green hair, a capable, athletic build, and the particular kind of reckless energy that belongs exclusively to teenage boys who haven't yet learned what fear is supposed to feel like. He's curious, he's brave, he's the kind of person who, when told not to go somewhere, immediately begins planning the trip. Daxter is his perfect complement, where Jak is composed. Daxter is chaotic. He's short, expressive, perpetually running his mouth in a voice that somehow manages to be both charming and exhausting in equal measure. He tells stories about himself that are just slightly more heroic than what actually happened. He is, in every meaningful sense, the comic relief, and yet he is also fiercely, genuinely loyal in a way that the series will make you appreciate more and more as it goes on. Their mentor is a man named Samos Haggai, the village's green sage, a grumpy and cryptic old man who seems to know more than he lets on about most things, including Jak. He has a daughter, Kira, who is brilliant with machinery and who has a complicated, unspoken something with Jak that the games never quite resolve, but never entirely let go of either. The inciting event of the entire series is an act of pure teenage disobedience. Samos warns Jak and Daxter explicitly and firmly to stay away from Misty Island, a forbidden place across the water, shrouded in dark energy and bad history. Naturally, this means they go immediately. On Misty Island, they encounter lurkers, large, hulking creatures in service of someone unknown, loading barrels of dark eco onto a ship. While investigating, Daxter falls from a walkway. He reaches out, grabs for anything, and his hands find nothing but the lip of a vat of dark eco. He plunges in. When he surfaces, drenched, sputtering, disoriented, something is wrong. Daxter is no longer a human boy. He is smaller, furrier. His hands have become small paws. His nose has elongated. He has, in short, become an ottsel, a fictional creature that is roughly 1 part otter, 1 part weasel, and 100% unhappy about it. It's played for laughs in the moment, and Daxter's reaction is appropriately theatrical. But it's also the wound that drives the entire first game, because Daxter is stuck like this until they can find someone who knows how to reverse it, and the only being powerful enough to do that is the dark eco sage himself, Gul Acheron. So off they go. Jak and Daxter, one riding the hoverboard, one perched on his shoulder, trying to maintain some dignity, set off across the world to find Gul Acheron and put things right. What follows is a journey that spans the length of the world as they know it, from the lush jungles near Sandover to the fire-scorched peaks of volcanic mountains, from ancient precursor temples to snow-blanketed northern wastes. The game takes its time. It breathes. Each region is a self-contained hub full of characters who need things done and secrets tucked into corners. Along the way, they encounter the other sages, the red sage, the yellow sage, the blue sage, each one missing, each one captured, each one held somewhere by Gol's lurker army. Gathering power cells to fuel Kira's machine, they push northward across the world, slowly understanding that what they're dealing with is bigger than one man's knowledge of dark eco. Gol Acheron, when they finally piece together the full picture, is not merely a sage who might know how to help Daxter. He has been corrupted by dark eco, consumed by it, twisted by it, transformed from a scholar into something that wants to use dark eco to scour the world clean of life. His sister Maya has followed him into this madness. Together, they have captured the other sages to harness their energies and power a vast ancient precursor robot, a machine capable of ripping open the sealed silos and flooding the world with dark eco. The final confrontation happens at the dark eco silo. The siblings have built their machine. The stakes could not be higher. Jak fights his way through, with Daxter clinging to his shoulder, narrating and occasionally being more hindrance than help, and, in the climactic final moment, discovers a source of white eco, pure eco, rare beyond measure, powerful enough to destroy Gol and Maya and seal the silo. But here's the thing. White eco is also powerful enough to reverse Daxter's transformation. It can't do both. Daxter makes the choice, without hesitation, without grand declaration. Just a small, quiet beat where the jokes stop and the character underneath all of them stands up and makes the right call. He lets Jak use the eco to save the world. He stays in Otzel. The world is saved. Gol and Maya are sealed within the silo. The other sages are freed. Samos says something enigmatic and quietly proud. And then, in the very last moments of the game, Jak and the others discover something near the silo. An enormous ancient ring, made of precursor metal, humming with dormant power. A rift ring, part of a larger artifact, a door to somewhere else. They've never seen anything like it. Samos has a look on his face that suggests, perhaps, that he has. And the game ends on sunshine, on the sea wind coming off Sandover, on Daxter still being an Otzel, and somehow seeming almost okay with it. It's a near perfect first chapter, light in its aesthetics, genuine in its heart, and quietly mythic in the way it handles the precursors and their ruins, and the energy that runs through everything. It feels like a world that has been around for a long time before you arrived, and will keep going long after you leave. It was also, in retrospect, the calm before an extraordinary storm, because the sequel was a completely different kind of game, a completely different kind of story, and it announced itself with one of the most brutal opening sequences a PlayStation 2 game had ever attempted. Sometime after the events of the Precursor Legacy, the four of them, Jak, Daxter, Kira, and Samos, bring the Rift Ring back to Sandover and use Kira's machine, a Rift Rider, to activate it. They have almost no idea what they're doing or where it leads. But there is something on the other side, and the world they've already saved feels too small to hold them. The ring activates. A massive creature, something metallic, monstrous, driven, erupts from the portal, searching frantically for a boy. The four of them flee onto the Rift Rider. The machine destabilizes. They are pulled through, and then they are separated. Kira and Samos are thrown one way. Jak and Daxter land somewhere else entirely, somewhere that is nothing like Sandover. They have traveled 300 years into the future. The world they knew, the world of open sky and jungle and seaside villages, is gone. What they land in is Haven City, a sprawling, rain-slicked, heavily industrial metropolis enclosed by massive steel walls. The architecture is brutalist and oppressive. The streets are patrolled by soldiers in red armor, the Crimson Guard, who answer to a single authority, a man known as Baron Praxis. Jak is captured within minutes of arrival. He doesn't even have time to understand where he is. He is taken to the Baron's prison, and for 2 years, he is subjected to a series of experiments, dark eco-injections, one after another, designed to create what the Baron calls a supreme weapon, a soldier capable of channeling dark eco as a power source. Everyone who comes before Jak in this program dies. The experiments are not gentle. Daxter, who escaped capture on arrival, spends those 2 years doing what Daxter does, surviving, moving through Haven City's underworld, learning its geography, finding cracks in its walls, looking for his friend. When we see Jak again, when Daxter finally breaks into the prison and reaches his cell, we almost don't recognize him. He's older, harder. He has a jawline now and a goatee and eyes that have seen 2 years of something that doesn't have a clean name. When Daxter cracks a joke, because of course he does, because that's what Daxter does, Jak is silent for a moment, and then broken open by dark eco and rage and something he barely has words for. He says his first words in the whole series, "I'm going to kill Praxis." It's a cold open, and it works, because we knew this boy when he was quiet and golden and free, and watching what 2 years of Baron Praxis did to him is its own kind of horror. The dark eco experiments have left Jak changed in a lasting way. He can now absorb dark eco and, when enough of it courses through him, transform into Dark Jak, a powerful, barely controlled, terrifying version of himself that tears through enemies with something that is less combat and more rage, given a body. It's not entirely under his control at first. He learns, slowly. Haven City, when you start to understand it, is a deeply sad place. Baron Praxis, voiced with wonderful menace by actor Clancy Brown, presents himself to the population as their great protector, the man standing between them and the metal heads, enormous, intelligent, metallic exoskeletal creatures that have been besieging the city for years. His propaganda plays from speakers on every corner. His Crimson Guard enforce his will with casual brutality. What Jak slowly uncovers is the truth beneath the presentation. Praxis isn't just a tyrant, he's a corrupt one, in the specific and insidious way where the threat he claims to protect against has been quietly maintained to justify his own power. He has a secret arrangement with the metalhead leader, just enough violence to keep the citizens afraid, not enough to actually destroy the city, all of it serving the Baron's throne. Jak joins the underground, a resistance movement working to depose Praxis and restore Haven City to something resembling freedom. Their leader, known only as the Shadow, turns out to be an older version of Samos, proof that the time travel has scrambled things in ways still being untangled. The cast of Haven City is rich and human and often very funny in spite of everything. There's Torn, the stern, tattooed underground commander who gives you missions with the energy of a man who has run out of patience for the world but keeps showing up anyway. There's Crew, a grotesquely obese crime lord who floats through his lair on a hover chair and deals in weapons and information with the cheerful amorality of someone who genuinely doesn't believe in anything except profit. There's Sig, an enormous, gentle, bald man who carries a weapon the size of a small car and who is, improbably, one of the most likable presences in the trilogy. And there is the Kid, a young, green-haired boy who appears early in the game in the care of a quiet old man named Core, and who seems to recognize Jak in a way that doesn't quite make sense. The threads of the story twist and connect throughout. The Precursor Stone, an ancient artifact said to contain enough power to destroy the Metalhead Nest, is sought by multiple parties for multiple reasons. Jak fights for it, Praxis maneuvers for it, Crew maneuvers for it, and behind all of them, patient and hidden, something else is watching. In the climactic unraveling, Crew is destroyed. Praxis, mortally wounded, shoves the stone into Jak's hands in a final act of spite and desperation. And then Core reveals himself. He is not a gentle old man. He is the Metalhead leader, the mastermind of the entire invasion, the creature that came through the Rift Ring at the beginning, the one who was looking for a boy. He has been manipulating everything. Baron Praxis, the underground, the stone, all of it, pulling strings from behind a human face. And the Kid, the young boy with green hair and eyes just like Jak's, he is Jak himself, young Jak, the infant Jak who was born in this city 300 years from now and sent back in time specifically to grow up with the strength he would need to return here and face this moment. The green-haired boy and the scarred young man in the red armor are the same person, separated by decades, meeting in the same moment because time is strange and the precursors needed a specific kind of hero to exist. In the final battle, Jak defeats Core. Young Jak releases the precursor entity contained within the stone, which dissolves the remaining Metalhead forces and tells Jak something important. The dark eco-corruption inside him has been balanced with light. He is not just a weapon made by suffering. He is something that survived suffering and came out the other side. The city is free, for now, but Jak is still angry. He is still damaged, and there is still a war beginning in Haven City streets, because when a tyrant falls, the things that kept the city stable, even oppressively stable, fall with him. Jak 2 is a remarkable piece of work. It is genuinely dark, darker than almost anything else in the PlayStation 2 platformer catalog, and it earns its darkness. The torture backstory, the propaganda machine of Praxis, the ambiguity of almost every alliance in the city, the way even Crew is written with a kind of wry self-awareness. It asked its audience to grow up a little, and most of them were ready. The third game, released just a year later, would ask them to sit with something quieter and harder still. A year has passed since the fall of Baron Praxis and the defeat of Metal Core. Haven City should be recovering. Instead, it's at war, again and worse. The surviving Metalheads have regrouped, a new faction of robotic soldiers called the KG Deathbots, remnants of the Baron's old Crimson Guard, now repurposed by a familiar and very unpleasant enemy, has joined them. The Freedom League, Haven's fledgling new military, is barely holding the line, and Jak, the man who saved the city, is standing in a chamber before the Haven City Council, being blamed for all of it. The logic is, Jak worked alongside Crew. Crew allowed the metalheads access to the city. Core manipulated Jak. Ergo, somehow, Jak is responsible. There is also the matter of his dark eco powers, which the council finds destabilizing and frightening. Count Vager, an aristocratic, self-important member of the council who radiates the specific energy of a man who has never faced consequences, delivers the verdict with evident satisfaction. Jak is banished to the wasteland, left to die in the desert, with only Daxter, who refused to leave, and a small bird creature named Pecker for company. They walk into the desert. The heat is immense. The sand stretches in every direction, and eventually, all three of them collapse. They are found by a group of scavengers following a tracking beacon that Ashlyn, Haven's governor, and someone who opposed the banishment entirely, quietly slipped into Jak's pocket before he left. It is a small act. It saves his life. The scavengers bring them to Spargus City. Spargus is a revelation. Haven City was concrete and steel and shadow and propaganda speakers on every corner. Spargus is stone and wood and salt air perched on the edge of a desert ocean, populated entirely by people who were exiled from Haven and decided to survive anyway. It is harder and more honest than anything Haven ever managed. Its king is a large, weathered, quiet man named Damas. Damas informs Jak, matter-of-factly, that his life now belongs to Spargus because Spargus saved it. If Jak wants to earn a permanent place here, he has to prove himself as a warrior. Jak is in no position to argue. What follows is a quieter arc than anything in Jak 2, and I think it's the most emotionally interesting part of the trilogy. Damas is a father figure in the truest sense, not in a soft, gentle way, but in the way of someone who respects capability and tells hard truths and does not offer praise cheaply. He gives Jak missions. He watches how Jak handles them. Over time, something like warmth develops between them. Not spoken, not obvious, just present. And there are hints scattered throughout the early hours that Damas lost a son, that he had a child in Haven City before he was banished by Baron Praxis, that the child was taken from him. He carries it quietly, the way people carry things that have become load-bearing for their personality. You sense it rather than see it. While Jak is earning his place in Spargus, larger things are moving. The precursors begin communicating with him again through statues and visions. They speak of the Dark Makers, an ancient cosmic enemy. The Dark Makers, the precursors reveal, were once precursors themselves, long ago, before prolonged exposure to dark eco corrupted them beyond recovery. They are what you become when dark eco wins. They are Jak's dark form projected onto a civilizational scale. Their ship is approaching the planet, and if it arrives, they will terraform everything, remake the world in their image, which is a world of decay. Light eco enters the picture here. Jak begins gaining light Jak powers to balance his dark Jak abilities, healing, slowing time, a kind of radiant stillness that is the opposite of everything dark Jak represents. The two forms in him, rage and grace, destruction and protection, slowly learn to coexist. Back in Haven City, Jak discovers that an old enemy is behind the KG Deathbots. Errol, the former commander of the Crimson Guard, who was believed dead after a racing accident, has been rebuilt as a cyborg. He is now Cyber Errol, and he has allied with the Dark Makers, commanding their forces with the particular bitterness of a man who never got over losing. Jak splits his time between Spargus, the Wasteland, and Haven City, fighting on every front, slowly gathering the tools and allies he needs for a final confrontation. Sig is here, the giant, warm-hearted warrior from Jak 2, working as a spy for Damas and serving as one of the trilogy's most reliable presences. Kira is back, working on machines. Samos is back, being cryptically wise. And then comes the moment the game has been building toward. Jak and Damas are making a charge together through the desert, fighting their way through enemy territory toward the planet's core, where an ancient precursor defense system waits to be activated. They are in a vehicle. The vehicle is hit. It crashes. Jak survives. Damas does not. Damas is a father figure in the truest sense, not in a soft, gentle way, but in the way of someone who respects capability and tells hard truths and does not offer praise cheaply. He gives Jak missions. He watches how Jak handles them. Over time, something like warmth develops between them. Not spoken, not obvious, just present. And there are hints scattered throughout the early hours that Damas lost a son, that he had a child in Haven City before he was banished by Baron Praxis, that the child was taken from him. He carries it quietly, the way people carry things that have become load-bearing for their personality. You sense it rather than see it. While Jak is earning his place in Spargus, larger things are moving. The precursors begin communicating with him again through statues and visions. They speak of the Dark Makers, an ancient cosmic enemy. The Dark Makers, the precursors reveal, were once precursors themselves, long ago, before prolonged exposure to dark eco corrupted them beyond recovery. They are what you become when dark eco wins. They are Jak's dark form projected onto a civilizational scale. Their ship is approaching the planet, and if it arrives, they will terraform everything, remake the world in their image, which is a world of decay. Light eco enters the picture here. Jak begins gaining light Jak powers to balance his dark Jak abilities, healing, slowing time, a kind of radiant stillness that is the opposite of everything dark Jak represents. The two forms in him, rage and grace, destruction and protection, slowly learn to coexist. Back in Haven City, Jak discovers that an old enemy is behind the KG Deathbots. Errol, the former commander of the Crimson Guard, who was believed dead after a racing accident, has been rebuilt as a cyborg. He is now Cyber Errol, and he has allied with the Dark Makers, commanding their forces with the particular bitterness of a man who never got over losing. Jak splits his time between Spargus, the Wasteland, and Haven City, fighting on every front, slowly gathering the tools and allies he needs for a final confrontation. Sig is here, the giant, warm-hearted warrior from Jak 2, working as a spy for Damas and serving as one of the trilogy's most reliable presences. Kira is back, working on machines. Samos is back, being cryptically wise. And then comes the moment the game has been building toward. Jak and Damas are making a charge together through the desert, fighting their way through enemy territory toward the planet's core, where an ancient precursor defense system waits to be activated. They are in a vehicle. The vehicle is hit. It crashes. Jak survives. Damas does not. Damas is dying, and he knows it. He reaches out to Jak with something in his hand, a small amulet, a pendant. He tells Jak to find his son, the boy he lost, the one called Mar, and he shows him the amulet as proof of lineage, a symbol of the House of Mar. Jak looks at the amulet. He has seen it before. He has held it before on young Jak, on his own younger self in Jak 2. He realizes it with a clarity that lands like a stone in still water. Damas was his father, and Damas is dying, not knowing. Count Vager, because of course he's here, because that's exactly the kind of person Vager is, arrives in the aftermath and confirms it with theatrical glee. He was the one who took the infant Jak from Damas. He kidnapped the child to harness his eco abilities. He is responsible for the separation, and he delivers this information with the tone of someone who expects to be admired for it. It is one of the most quietly devastating sequences in the trilogy, not because it's loud, it isn't, but because the thing it takes away from Jak was something he barely even knew he had. The story presses on. It has to. There is still a planet to save. At the planet's core, Jak and Daxter finally encounter the precursors themselves. After 3 games of being spoken of as ancient, towering, unknowable creators, the builders of all the ruins, the architects of eco, the gods of this world, they appear. They are Otzels, small, round, fuzzy little Otzels, exactly like Daxter. It is simultaneously the funniest and most philosophically interesting moment in the series. The great myth of the precursors collapses into something silly and warm and somehow right. The legend was real. The power was real. The builders of the world are also small creatures who move on little paws and have bright eyes. Count Vager, who has been obsessing over the precursors his entire life, who has committed terrible acts to reach this moment, who expected to be transformed into something divine, demands to be made like them. He gets his wish. He becomes an Otzel. He is furious about it in a way that is honestly extremely funny. The precursors send Jak and Daxter to slow the Darkmaker ship while the planetary defense system charges. The mission succeeds. The ship is destroyed. But Cyber Errol escapes in a massive spider-leg terraformer, a final, mechanical, desperate last stand, and crashes down in the desert outside Spargus. Jak destroys him in the desert with fire, and what the game implies is a considerable amount of pent-up feeling. And then it's over. Sig is made King of Spargus, the man Damas would have wanted, someone who embodies the same values. Hard, fair, genuinely cares. Haven City begins to rebuild. Ashlyn governs. Torn commands. Kira and Jak have one of their characteristically understated, almost conversations. The precursors offer Jak something remarkable, the chance to join them, to evolve, to become something beyond human, to see the universe. And Jak says no, because Daxter is here, and Jak is not leaving Daxter. The precursors, in their last act, offer Daxter his human form back. After everything, 3 games, a transformation, years as an Otzel, they can fix it. They ask if he wants to be human again. Daxter thinks about it for a moment. He asks for pants instead. He's grown into this, it seems. And Tess, his love interest, who has been around since Jak 2, is turned into an Otzel herself, apparently delighted. The game ends with Jak revealing to his friends, for the first time out loud, that his real name is Mar, the name of his ancestor, the name of the legendary founder of Haven City, the hero whose legacy has threaded through the mythology of the whole trilogy. He was always the heir to that name, and he was always going to earn it by choosing people over power. The story of Jak and Daxter is, in many ways, a story about what happens to a person when the world is not kind to them. The first game is about innocence, about 2 boys and a terrible accident, and a world that is mostly still beautiful. The second game is about what 2 years of suffering does to a boy who hadn't quite finished becoming a man. And the third game is about the long, slow work of putting yourself back together, of finding new people to belong to, of accepting that grief and joy are not opposites, of figuring out who you are when the person you thought you were is gone. Jak goes from silent hero to broken weapon to something harder to define and more interesting. A person who has seen the worst of what the world can offer and who chooses every time to stay in it. For Daxter, for the people he's found, for the world that keeps needing him. And Daxter, loud, ridiculous, slightly exhausting Daxter, turns out to be, quietly, the backbone of the whole thing. He spent 2 years alone in a city that wanted to eat him alive, refusing to leave without Jak. He gave up his human form to save the world without making a speech about it. He stayed in Otzel through everything, and at the end, when offered the cure, he asked for pants. That's the series, really. That's the heart of it. 2 friends, impossible circumstances, and the particular, stubborn, unglamorous kind of love that just keeps showing up. I hope tonight it carried you somewhere soft, somewhere with a little sunshine even in the dark. Rest well.